It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
So Amazon, basically, Peloton is in the crapper. It's dead. It's going to die. It's on its way to dying. Peloton is like all of those characters in all of those premium access cable shows that died on a Peloton. They just fired 2,800 employees.
Okay, that's hilarious, by the way, because that's been the story as all these spring shows come out. Like, how many, 2 or 3 people have died or
had a heart attack. Yeah.
Look, you and I did a Peloton story. Yeah. When you didn't even know what a Peloton bike was.
That's not true.
That was clear during the story.
Okay.
We were both surprised by the cost
bike
of the Peloton bike.
Correct. And this was in the single digit episodes, and I think I quoted like a $6,000 or $7,000 price when it was like $1,500 or $2,000. The point is, it's a fancy exercise bike with an iPad taped to it, and it's way too much money.
But we talked about it, and I think one of the things you and I said during that episode that we've both been proven correct is how does this monetize in the long run? You can only sell so many bikes, then it turns into a subscription model, and how much is that subscription, and how many people can you get to sign up for those subscriptions, and yada, yada, yada. And that has now gone from being the Dos Equis, you know what I mean? Hot shot. This is a new thing. And now we're on the other side of it. And they go from during what we, call the panini, right? Yeah. It got up to a, what was it? What was the valuation during the, it got up to a $52 billion market cap during the middle of the panini, right? It was a darling. Everybody wanted it. This is the next big thing. And since then has fallen from a $52 billion market cap to an $8 billion market cap.
Hilarious, first of all. Second of all, I have this theory that, the modern startup ecosystem, that I don't know if this is a Silicon Valley company, but it certainly feels like it. Mm-hmm. They're anti-capitalist doing capitalism, and then they're always like, why isn't it working? I don't know, maybe because you didn't put profits in front of basically everything else. You're just like, we'll just grow our user base, and then step 1, grow user base, step 2, question mark, step 3, question mark, step 4, go public, step 5, billions of dollars. Like, you have to do this weird thing where you provide value and people buy something and you make money.
Well, but something like an exercise bike is obviously not something you replace every 30 days, right? Or even every 6 months. Or even there's a reason mattresses are so expensive, even though they're so cheap to make, because you don't, replace mattresses every month or whatever.
Yeah.
But apparently,
speak for yourself, dude.
It wasn't just the business model. By the way, apparently, according to one of the top investors, Blackwell's Capital, it's also John Foley's fault, which is,
of course,
until today or yesterday, the original CEO of Peloton, one of its creators, one of its big-time upfront investors, because apparently Mr. CEO Foley has been making a whole bunch of his friends really rich. He hired his wife to a high-profile, high-paying gig. He's made these deals with buddies for contracts to build these things into and lock them into high. Apparently, he's an ISD. He's an independent school district making all these. My buddy over here is a plumber, so we're gonna pay him $5,000 an hour to plumb an elementary school because it's on. So apparently, he's been running this company like his own personal. Piggy bank. And then Blackwell Capital comes along after this drop and goes, this is dumb and unsustainable. We need to do something else.
So that is the number one sign that the CEO has no faith in his business. He has because here's why. If he did, he's like, all right, this thing's over. It's Theranos. Who can we which one of our friends can we hook up with all of this investor capital so that when this thing inevitably takes the hitter, we can go live in their beach house in South Florida, their beach house, which is just
Hmm.
you laundered money through their manufacturing facility
You're
somewhere.
robbing people at that point, right? I got
That's
Buddy
a
Paul over
strong
here
word.
that
That's a strong
I'm
word.
gonna give $1 million to, right? And you're just robbing people at that point. You're talking about, and you can understand why Blackwell Capital. You look at that kind of stuff because Blackwell
Yeah.
Capital is an investor in the company, right?
Right.
They don't make any money if a company loses 83% of its value in the last year.
Wow.
83%. So obviously they got some questions. And one of
Where's
those
where's
questions,
Blackwell's on the cap table? Like, what do they own? When do they come in? Do you know?
they came in at the before the jump, right? As
Okay.
it went up in the jump. Right now they're losing money. That's the
Of
point. Their
course.
investment.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do and what they've been pressuring Peloton to do in the last several weeks
Yeah.
is fire Foley and then
Right.
sell it to a big company because they
Right.
think they think they can look. Selling a company is like selling anything. It's about a
Yeah.
package, right?
Right.
You and I have
What are
talked
you getting?
several times in the last month about acquisitions by companies even above their current stock value, right?
Right.
Because they're not just buying it right then, they're buying it for its future ability.
Yeah.
So Blackwell
And they're
thinks
buying
that
it for
they can.
synergy. You know,
Right.
they
And
they
Blackwell
have.
thinks
Yeah.
that they can package this deal. It's currently trading at 38, 37, $38 a share
Right.
after that 83% drop. Blackwell thinks they can turn around and get somebody to buy it at more like 65 or 70, which would get Blackwell out with a profit.
There you go.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But
It
that's
makes perfect
packaging,
sense.
which means
Right.
getting Foley out and these dumbass people that he's hired and all
Right.
that kind of stuff.
And you know what I
Um,
just realized is a flaw of our podcast is we make all these grand predictions, and in the future iterations of the show, we're going to be betting on them in real time. So like we think this we because if you and I had when we did that initial episode talking about Peloton, if we had shorted their stock, we would be doing this from a yacht off the coast of Fiji, not where we are
Right.
doing it.
Yeah. No, an 18 month short. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. We could have
and an
carried that.
83% drop. Right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
insane. But look, Blackwell's talking to everybody. I mean, this story has Amazon's name on it, but
Yeah.
really, Blackwell's reached out to Walt Disney, Apple,
Yeah.
Sony, right?
I don't think
Amazon.
any of those people want to buy your dumb stationary bike with an iPad taped to it. Here's the thing. I firmly believe that Foley or somebody else, probably Foley, leaked the we're talking to Nike and Amazon. And
Right.
the reason he leaked that was to prevent what has now happened, which is his ultimate demise at Peloton. You know, what I predict is as he is left, there is somebody right now in their office shredding party, baby. They are shredding everything.
100%.
They Enron something at some point, and they are shredding everything. And what they say, if there's they're it's that one episode of Secession where they went through and they have to delete stuff off of a hard drive. So
So
good
in
luck.
the last 2 days, they've announced Foley's resigning.
Yep,
They've announced we're firing 2,800 people,
that's cool.
which I don't even know how big their staff is, but it can't be much more than 2,800 people.
I
You
think
know what
it's
I mean?
great that they're firing 2,800 people.
They've also
Because
told
no one should work for Peloton.
they've also told the city in Ohio that they said that they
Build
were
them.
building a $400 million facility in
Right.
that they're not going to finish that.
You don't say.
Uh, and they've hired a new guy by the name of Barry McCarthy that's going to be the new CEO and president that previously worked for Spotify and Netflix
Oh.
because, as you and I mentioned a long time ago,
Right.
sees that their way forward is not manufacturing bicycles, but it's creating
Content.
a monthly revenue stream of
Right.
content to
Right.
go on these things.
Bicycles. And every other company that manufactures bicycles can you can just get their app and you can do the class
Of-
whenever you want.
You you could redesign every standing bicycle maker, right? Of
Yeah.
every that go look, there's probably only 2 or 3 companies that make
That
bikes for gyms and
yeah,
stuff like that that
it's like
specialize for this,
it's
right?
two basically two huge companies.
So why not let them make the bike for a fraction of what you're trying to do it for and
Correct.
redesign it to have an iPad sitting on front of it, and you just sell the software to every single gym, every
Yep.
single whatever.
You just
And
become the premier operating system for every fitness thing, and then you come up with a fitness band and you go acquire. That's all very smart. But here's the thing, it's so much harder to extract capital from a legitimate business than it is a fake business. So
I think that's what they're doing is they're shedding
um,
the I keep calling it robbery because that's how I look at it. They're shedding that because they knew they couldn't grow as a company with that going
right.
on. So
Yeah.
they're getting rid of that and they're thinking, okay, this we're gonna have to make this sustainable to get it out of here,
Yeah.
and get it even if we are gonna sell it. Now, according to Peloton, okay, they have not decided they're gonna sell.
Uh, oh,
Okay,
okay. Like it's up to you. That's like if I went around and said, I'm just being single to take time for myself.
well,
Like I
but
had an option.
here's the deal. The problem with any company, even a publicly traded company, right? Like
Right.
Peloton,
Yeah.
is that people don't realize, and this is kind of my issue with crypto and everything else,
Oh, you don't
is
have any issue
the
with
way
crypto. It's
this
the
is
future.
current. No, it's not. The way you vote on as a company, even though
Right.
Foley is no longer CEO,
Right.
okay, or president,
Right.
between him and what they list as insiders, right,
Right. Yeah.
own 80% of the voting stock.
Huh.
So
Well,
when
that's
they
gonna
say
that's gonna
Peloton hasn't decided to sell,
yeah, that's Foley hasn't
that's
decided.
Foley hasn't decided to sell. And if he doesn't decide and you control
Yeah, the
80% of
stock.
the voting site,
Right.
you and what you have to list as insiders, which is probably all these people he's been
Hooking
giving
up.
money to,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter what Blackwell says.
Yeah.
Blackwell
So
Capital can make an argument.
right, and they can ouster the CEO, but at the end of the day, he has a it's the exact same thing that happened with WeWork, right? The guy he controlled so many of the board seats that they had to make him a billionaire to get him to leave a
Mm-hmm.
business that was worth $15.
Yep. So what do you do as Foley, as a guy, if he and the insiders, assuming the
Right,
insiders are in his pocket, whoever
right,
that may be and whatever percentage they own,
right.
have 80% of the voting rights, how do you make him sell if he doesn't want to?
So if I'm Foley, I'm saying, and this has always been my view, which is if I was able to do it once, I'll do it again. I'd been texting you a couple weeks ago, like, hey, I had all these domain names that I let them go because I wasn't going to use
Mm-hmm.
them, and now some other ding dong has bought them up and is now trying to sell them for thousands of dollars.
Flip them.
And here's me looking at it, going, I could have bought a motorcycle. I could have wasted this money on something I don't need.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I did it once. I can do it again. So I sat down. I was like, I'll just buy 5 more domain names right now. So
Well,
if I'm Foley, I'm saying, hey, let's cash out of this for stupid amounts of money. Let's let Amazon buy it. I don't see Nike as a buyer. Nike makes no sense as a buyer unless they're buying the operating system and their intent is to be the premier fitness operating system. That makes sense. Now, that's a business that makes sense.
but that's also a big jump from what you've been doing, right? Like to
But,
say I'm no longer going to make bikes, which is what
right,
made you
Peloton,
right. What Peloton?
right,
Look, there's one out here, and I want to bring this up. I don't normally bring these kind of things up, but again, it was in this article. It was actually in both articles. It doesn't specifically say who said this. I'm
right,
assuming it was Blackwell,
yeah,
because of they're the ones bringing up all the complaints. But in
right,
both stories, it had the line that Foley specifically was holding on to excessive inventory while misleading investors about the need to raise capital. So even though Foley has 80% of the voting rights or
Right.
controls that, if you prove that he's been lying or misleading to investors,
Yeah.
that's a lot of leverage to get him to do what you want him to do, which in this case
Right.
may be selling the company.
And I can say that there was an example of a guy that I know who owned a Chevrolet dealership. And in the crisis of 2008, 2009, when General Motors was going under, he fought tooth and nail to say he was going to keep his dealership because they wanted him to close. Now, it was
Mm-hmm.
third or fourth generation. The fourth generation guy who got a hold of the business messed it up to Kingdom Come. Third generation guy to come back. He fought tooth and nail to keep it. And then within 6 months, sold the land to Costco. Sold his entire customer list to the Chevy dealership down the highway. And it was perplexing to a lot of people why he would do that and make such a drastic change in opinion. No,
Mm-hmm.
he held on to his dealership because he knew he was already in talks with Costco. I guarantee it. Because
Mm-hmm.
Costco's not buying your piece of land in 6 months, right?
Right.
He was fighting to keep it because he knew that he could exit at a better value if they weren't going under. So part
Mm-hmm.
of the thing that's happening here is it could be that Foley is fighting to keep a certain perspective about Peloton alive because that perspective is going to increase his exit by tenfold, probably.
Why not?
Tenfold's
You know what I mean?
tenfold's generous, but double. And to explain to people out there who are listening who aren't ardent diehard capitalists at this scale, which neither of us are, I would
Mm-hmm.
think. This isn't about the money. It's not about what he's going to buy with the money because this is already Rolls Royce money, right?
Right.
This is already yacht money. This is about keeping point, keeping score.
Right. It's about him and whatever he wants to do next. He
Yeah,
wants his name intact, so when he
right.
goes and tries to rip off somebody else for another $100 million,
Rip
that
off is
he
such a strong word.
that he gets away with it because he can hang
This,
this on and go,
yeah,
look what I did with Peloton in a decade.
business is war, and there's no rules when it comes to war. The only rule is winning, right?
That is Danny's
There's
perspective. I have this thing
yes,
called ethics, but yes, I get it.
I
You
have
can't
this thing called ethnics.
you can have ethics and make
Yeah.
money regardless of what people try to tell you.
Yes, you can, but you don't have any fun because there's all these rules and everybody's feelings are involved. And it's all about conditions for the workers. Okay, Karl
Yeah,
Marx.
all
I
right.
don't care.
Yeah. And speaking of ethics, our next story is.
Well, were we going to talk about, we have a little, just really quick, you can go to marketexplainer.com and
Mhm.
patreon.com/marketexplainer. Check those out. We're trying to shorten up these ad reads because, we know you're not clicking. Uh,